Recording is on.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the weekly DXdev development call. And this week we're going to talk about the kind of latest technical happenings across the products. And then we're going to dig into the relayers that have been worked on by Nico and are, the swapper liquidity relayer being currently used on XIM mainnet, and then the Gnosis protocol relayer, which is being prepared for use on mainnet and I guess potentially also XDAI. So yeah, I guess to start, should we just talk a little bit about Omen? I don't know, Geronimo, Kaden, you guys want to update there?
Yeah, we released a new version yesterday. Was it yesterday? Yeah. Which finally includes the XDAI relay with a lot of bug fixes. We had like a proper delay because we really needed to test out the whole redeem functions just to make sure that there's no bug involved in redeeming winnings. So that's that. Yeah. And now we are like full force in making sure that we are starting with the Omen token airdrop preparations and the guilds. And I think we had priority set to release the guild with market curation and like a competition feature, but now we are shifting focus on actually making sure that the Omen token distribution launch in combination with Mesa is supported with having like a liquidity mining curation feature ready to go with the guild. So the first feature from the guild should be curating which markets on Omen should get like Omen token rewards. Yeah, so that's basically it. Any questions?
Yeah, me, Hero, two questions. One is about the Omen token distribution. How are you guys going to distribute the token? Is it going to be a token owner address that is going to be minting and burning tokens? Is DXdev going to mint the tokens?
Yeah, this is a big question I had too, because I don't think we've talked about the airdrop or distribution at all.
So the way we thought about is first, like someone needs to check out which type of airdrops they are. Like I think what we positions ourselves on is having like a claim contract, similar as we do it with the gas refunds. So we need to get on chain and check who is the owner from which DXD, which sits somewhere in some contract or like a normal Ethereum address, and then prepare the claim contract. And the only thing either the guild needs to do or the DXDAO needs to do is basically ratify the transfer of the Omen tokens needed, which will be transferred to the claim contract.
Okay. So yeah, because I'm writing the contracts for the Omen token, and I'm just using it as a basic ERC20 token that will be also be upgradable. And I'm going to set for one address being able to mint tokens, which I guess that is going to be the DXDAO avatar. And yeah, later you can figure out however you want to distribute the tokens. You can send it to a contract, and this contract can do the claim feature that you want. That's possible. So good on that. And about the features that you just mentioned on the Omen guild, I added on the Omen technical document the requirements for, I think it's A and B, to not being able to vote, to change the vote, and also the market validation proposals. But I thought those ones were the most important ones.
Yeah, they're still exactly as important for like the product and Omen, the platform, but like I think now the priorities, like at least the first release, should be like to support the token release, right? Like I'm not sure if like the market creation is a very specific type of proposal, or is like my question is, if someone is making a guild proposal, will we still have like the vote rewards on like normal proposals, or is it like very specific a curation proposal?
I set the votes rewards to happen on every vote.
That's
on any
awesome.
vote, on any
Okay.
proposal.
That's how I think we should do it. So I think this work is like not like we will basically use it on day one, the rewards.
Okay, awesome. Anyways, I think we will still need to set up a call where we can do a first technical review of what we have and what we are going to need on the future. Just a short call, maybe you, me, and Tammy.
Sounds great.
Yeah, because we already have something, and I'm trying to get it done to have it deployed on Rinkebai soon. And the idea is for it to be upgradable, so we can also test the upgradability. So later, if we want to add new features or want to fix something, we upgrade the contracts, and you don't have to change anything on the front end side, and we can add more features over it.
Yeah, that's perfect. Like I think we it's easy for us because we can like give ownership to the DXdev first, and then slowly transition like the sovereignty and like independency of the guild by giving up the ownership, potentially even like the token ownership, right? But for now, to move quick, let's let the DXdev first own it, and then we can discuss later if we actually transition the ownership to the guild.
Awesome. And at last, we were talking already with Hero today about the graph dependency on current Omen stuff. And I was telling them that actually you don't need the graph to work with the token to the guild, because the idea is to have all the information available on storage. And there is going to come a point where the proposals are not going to change, where a proposal already executed, that's it. You can take that information or the data to be immutable, where I guess we can design something or use something where we are not going to be requesting that information on chain, and therefore optimizing much more the app usability. Because if you have to load like 100 or 1,000 of proposals, it's going to take some time. But I don't think we are going to have that many amount of proposals active. So you don't actually, I just wanted to say, you don't need the graph to start implementing the guild. And you don't need. You can just get the contract from storage, the information from the storage contract, and later, if you see that it is not working fast, like it's taking some time to load, you can later add the graph. So I won't consider it something urgent on a need.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, right? Like especially if we're trying to tighten the timeline and get something live as quickly as possible, then the first version could use, kind of like DX Trust, right? Just you don't need the graph in there. Also, the graph causes other headaches like downtime that is stinky.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
like the only downside is, which is probably minimal for the first releases, is that we put the whole burden to the nodes, right? The inferior nodes, because you're basically requesting from.
We could use we could use the
multi-call.
Is it also called multi-call? There's so many things called multi-call.
Shit. I think it's multi-call.
How many multi-call things do we have?
Actually, that's what uses DX Trust, and Hero, don't worry about overloading Infinite nodes. They have plenty of they are managing plenty of data. So
Joe can take it.
Omen wouldn't Omen gear wouldn't move a finger or a hair over there. So yeah, don't worry about that.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I agree. So yeah. Like my question was in terms of the token. Are there so different type of, like, why do you need to spend time thinking about which type of token we need? Is it, yeah, like how different can an ERC20 token be?
Actually, no, it's not. It's not different. It's just an ERC20 token. But why? I mean, it's the same standard.
I think. Yeah, I think a big challenge with the token is going to be how does the airdrop get executed? And there's like random edge cases we have to worry about. Like there is, for instance, if we DXL airdrops to DXD, there's DXD on Mesa, there's DXD and XDAI, there's DXD on Loopring, there's DXD in liquidity pools. So there's different things we have to think about for the airdrop, and then there's also how does somebody redeem it? And I feel like there's tools out there, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if anybody here has an idea of like good airdrop tools to use. Like I know Uniswap did one, right? And a bunch of projects have done airdrops, but
now if we use a multi-call on the which is a requirement to have a new multi-call with the Omen guild and the Omen token on their list, being able to call. That is going to be another requirement for the deployment of mainnet. You can do multiple mints on one transaction, but I guess that how I will do it will be that if you have a big amount of token, let's say to an important token holder that is going to be transferred, you mint to it directly, and then you can create another distribution contract, like Omen token distribution contract, that is going to receive the tokens and is going to do the distribution itself, something like that.
Yeah. So I think Omen would be minted on mainnet, right? That would be the source
100%.
where it lives, but I think there is a need to distribute on XDAI as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a chance that most of the Omen liquidity will actually stay on XDAI if we do the token sale on if we do the sale on Mesa and make sure that Swapper get like proper Omen token with ETH injected by the DXdev, then I think the stuff will stay on XDAI, which is also better for like small token holders.
But can we, mint to not mint, make an airdrop with DXD holders and mainnet, and they can claim on XDAI or?
No, like the way we thought about is separate. Like we have activity on Omen on XDAI, which gets like their own claim contract on XDAI. So we separate XDAI Omen receivers with mainnet Omen receivers, and the people who did something on mainnet, which receive Omen tokens, will need to claim on mainnet.
Okay. Yeah. Otherwise, you have to coordinate. If you can choose like which place you want to get your airdrop, then you have to coordinate cross chain who did already get the airdrop, and yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But we still have like not defined who could lead this effort. The Omen team is quite busy. It's a small team. So, and like the airdrop is a very like external specific thing, which can also be handled by others. So that's like a shout out and request for like support.
Yeah, although I think the claim is going to have to be built into the Omen interface.
Yep. That's right.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll have to figure out who can work on that. Any other questions, thoughts on Omen before we go to Mesa? Nico and Martin, do you guys want to tell us what's new on Mesa?
Yeah. Hi. Yeah. Don't think there like many new stuff, but today we had our weekly Scrum meeting, and we discussed how we patch together all the parts, and so the graph is almost ready. And Nico did deploy, I think 2 days ago, he deployed the whole contracts because it's a series of contracts to a testnet. And Hamza now he's working on this. He's now reading the graph stuff and integrating into the front end, and so it's all working as planned. And next step is glue it together and then do more testing. But Nico and I have like the intention to make a documentation about the smart contract code, and then maybe if people have time who know about smart contracts can more read into it and looks if it's all if it looks like it's working, or and we want to have like a stage where we can be like ready for not for review, ready for review, or ready for review, I would call it, or for an audit in a way. And then we will see if we get a slot, and if not, then I think we will just polish the stuff and maybe add some new features during this time. And yes, I think this is where we are right now.
Great. Yeah, let's schedule an initial kind of review with Phil just to go over the architecture and everything, see if he has anything that immediately jumps, and then we can, you guys can continue. We'll all continue testing, and then schedule an actual audit once we feel good about the spec.
Mm-hmm. I know. Nico, do you have anything to add?
Nope. Perfectly said, Martin. Nothing to add from my side here.
Yes, the front end itself, it's in a way that the front end itself, it's like built, but it's not what's not integrated right now is that you can't connect to the blockchain. This is the next step we have to integrate. But the front end itself, like design, is like almost fully implemented. But now we have to connect it to the graph, and then of course now there's like some fake, you have like fake. You show like fake data, but now if you integrate graph, then we can really show the data from who is on the smart contract and not have this fake data anymore. But this is the stage we are now. Yeah. Okay. I think that this is it. Any question? Are we looking? There's this. We used the easy auction name a long time now, but now we have to get rid of it because it's not our name, and we are looking for a name. In the Mesa channel, there's like a discussion if somebody has like an idea for this, and we don't want to blow it up that much, but maybe if somebody has like a strong idea, or now I think tendencies are going to name it what it is, and this is like my idea is this point settled Dutch auction, which describe what it is, and short would be point Dutch. But maybe we can also have like a fantasy name. There was like a fair sale, but I think it makes sense if you can name it and is descriptive for it. For me, it makes sense, but of course we also can have like a fancy name. But I don't know. Maybe if there's strong idea somewhere, you can pitch it to us. Okay.
Just one thing I was thinking about, as Martin mentioned, we have now a state of these smart contracts where we actually can try to play around and test certain IDOs. That's what probably will happen within the Mesa squad the next few days. So, and as we think about distributing and selling the Mesa token on, the Omen token on Mesa, it would be pretty helpful for us to know as early as possible what the actual sale will look like, so that we could start trying and playing it out as early as possible. I didn't follow the decisions on Omen so closely. Do we maybe have some rough parameters there to play around with it?
I think that there are papers around which we can have a look on. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's duration and amount, right?
Yes, at the end, yes. Yeah, and you need like a base, a minimal price, because
Price and the token that or what we're selling it for, right?
yeah, you need, for Dutch, point Dutch, I name it like this, or easy auction. If the sale is not going, if not all the token, if there's not a bid for all the tokens, you get like a zero price or no price. There's no price. So you need like a minimal price to set, which if you're unlucky and there's not enough bid to fill up the whole token amount, then you have to sell it for the minimum price, or and I think, now the contract, I don't think, is there a threshold, Nico, on the contract? I don't have it like very present right now. No, I don't think so.
There's also like a minimum raise. So like
Okay.
so what the project actually is expected to minimal raise, that the price will actually be settled.
But of course, we can then play around and see, the idea is that we test it anyway, star-wide, that everyone can be part in a sale, and then maybe we'll see some dynamic or we'll see something different. But the big thing is, are we going to sell? Do we have a bid for all the tokens? That's the thing at the end. And if not, then you need a minimal price. And the minimum price, I discussed today with Nine about minimum price. The thing is, also if you did see like perp, not perp, like this balancer pool stuff, the minimal price, it's a very strong signal from a project in a way. And it should be wisely chosen because it's open, and then it has influence on the price. Okay. Yeah. I think that's it.
Thanks, Martin. Any other questions on Mesa? I thought we can talk a little bit about Swapper. By the way, we're just talking in the chat here about whether we could have the same ERC20 token address on mainnet and on XDAI. DAOstack actually did this. They have the same gen address on XDAI, but they control the bridge. So what we're not completely sure about here is whether you can tell if you want to use the Omni bridge, whether you can actually tell it what contract to mint to on XDAI. We kind of suspect that you can't.
Yeah, you probably can't for the Omni bridge, and you probably won't be able to do it for an Arbitrum bridge. The only reason that DAOstack was able to do that is because they control the bridge and they like forced it basically. So like you can theoretically force something like that to happen, but that's not like the
you can, and I imagine you could actually write a bridge contract which could support like certain mappings or whatever, right? Because at the end of the day, it's just doing something on one chain and then something else on another chain, right? Like based on trusted intermediaries. But yeah, I doubt it's possible with the Omni bridge. Yeah, new 677 token contract is deployed on XDAI every time the Omni bridge does it. Okay. Yeah, so probably not.
And that's the thing that Arbitrum is like planning to work. I think they changed their model to mirror what is happening with Omni bridge.
Yeah. Okay, so for Swapper, a couple new things are adding BAO swap support on XDAI and the network switcher. I don't know if, Federico, would you be able to demo the network switcher now? I don't know if you're ready, but cool. It's okay if not. If you do want it, that'd be cool. But
I mean, next time.
Yeah, next time. Cool. So there's a network switcher in this release, which basically prompts you to add XDAI as a network and switch to it if you don't have it, and uses the new MetaMask API. I haven't actually played with it yet. But yeah, I think that's going on. And then the other big thing is the do-it-yourself farming is getting closer to release and is being tested now. Anything else, Federico, that I'm missing?
Yeah, I mean, we just had the Alpha 5, basically. It's not yet public. I still have to publish it in the public swapper channel, but we have some interesting stuff there. Nothing major compared to Alpha 4, but still you have, as John said, the network switcher, the new MetaMask network adder API has been integrated in various places. You have multi-chain linking, meaning that you can basically link to the swap page, and basically you will land on the page with the right chain selected, basically. And yeah, just minor UI fixes and bug fixes, and but yeah, the Alpha 5 is pretty much ready, waiting for some feedback on the actual release on GitHub, and then we'll be ready to go and publish it.
And Federico also made some updates to DXstats, and it supports multiple chains, which is pretty cool.
All right.
Any questions about Swapper? I think that's a good transition into, let's talk a little bit about the relayers for people who don't know what they are, or why we have them, or how they work. I don't have a presentation, but I can share my screen and we can kind of walk through some of the things. So I think first we can talk about the Gnosis protocol relayer, then we can talk about the Swapper liquidity relayer, and then let's finish by talking about the new multi-call installation on which on mainnet we need to whitelist the smart contracts. So for any new relayers, they need to be added to a whitelist, and the new multi-call needs to be installed. Now on XDAI, there is not a whitelist for the multi-call, so it's more flexible. This is basically like a security thing, right? Like where we want to be extra controlled where all the main treasury is on mainnet. So first, Gnosis protocol relayer. I don't know if Nico, do you want to do the draw? I could also try to do the walkthrough, but I can, yeah.
Yeah, if you want to, you can make the walkthrough, and if there are any detailed questions or something, I'm happy to jump in as well.
Sure. Let me share my screen. I actually think it probably makes sense, even though this is an outdated version. We can look at the mainnet whitelisted. You guys see my alchemy?
Yeah.
All right. So the idea here is to use these relayers through the generic scheme multi-call, so it can actually execute multiple calls in a row. And oops, I'm on the wrong network. Second. Yeah, so the idea with the Gnosis protocol relayer is to enable DXDAO to make trades from the treasury. Right? So there's, when DXDAO wants to diversify its treasury by buying stablecoins, it would be good to be able to directly do that from the treasury in a trustless way that uses a proposal. And also, if DXDAO wants to do something like a DXD buyback, it's very similar, right? Just making trades on Ethereum from the treasury. And so if DXL wants to buy DXD with ETH, it would be great to be able to use a relayer to do this, to use proposals to actually make the trades and interact with these other smart contracts. So yeah, the general problem here from making proposals to actually executing something on Ethereum is the DAO needs to understand how to interact with those other smart contracts on Ethereum. And for security reasons, it doesn't make sense to open it up to anything just so that, because it could create extra burden in terms of like people trying to understand what the proposals are doing or how they're working. We want to make it as controlled and clear as possible so that we have safe proposals that are easy to monitor and for all the rep holders to understand and vote appropriately on. So here, just to kind of review, we have the generic scheme multi-call, and here on mainnet, it actually shows you the whitelisted contracts, right? So right now, today, we have 9 different contracts, right? So we have the token registry. This is used for the token lists on Mesa, on Swapper. It's also used, I think, at least in theory, could be used for Omen market blacklists and other things that we want to make lists for. Ens Registry. This has something to do with ENS. Does somebody remember what this actually does? It's
The registry?
The ENS Registry with fallback.
I think you use the registry to renew ENS domains. I think it's like the master contract of the whole.
Oh, so you can actually register domains with this contract? We probably haven't used this in a while.
Right.
I'm also not sure about the base registrar.
It's definitely important.
The public resolver, that's how we actually update the dApps, by changing the content hash in the ENS record on ENS contracts. So basically, there are actually separate schemes for all of these, but they're here as well if you want to use them inside of the multi-call. Remember, the difference here with the multi-call is you could actually like stack calls together all within one proposal, which is pretty cool. So then we have the Gnosis. Yeah.
John, are you? I don't know if other people see it, but like you have a list of contracts, right? We can't actually see those.
Oh, you can't see the list I'm going through?
Yeah, the pop-up window doesn't show. At least.
Sorry.
It's not a big deal, but.
Okay, yeah. So I'm just like talking through. I guess there's nothing I can do about that. But if you guys want to go to Alchemy and pull up the multi-call scheme like I am, you can see the dropdown, and I'll just talk through it. So there's Gnosis protocol relayer, and then there's the DX swap relayer or swapper relayer, and those are the two I want to like talk about now. Contracts that DXDAO has currently whitelisted are the so-called decentralized autonomous trust. That's the bonding curve. It's also the DXD token address. And then we have 2 more that are related to Swapper. One is the fee receiver and the other is the fee setter. So DXDAO owns both of those contracts and can do, can transfer and upgrade the ownership of them to new contracts if we wanted to change them. And actually, DXDAO can use the fee setter to set the swap fees on any pair on Swapper, which we actually did for the first time on XDAI last Friday when the house XDAI pair was set to 3%. And that was pretty cool because it was done even ahead of the token being liquid. So yeah, so sorry people couldn't see that, but those are the contracts that are currently whitelisted. Now that we have some new contracts to add, we got to think of what we want the next installations to look like and what should be whitelisted. Let's see now. So if I select Gnosis protocol relayer, people should be able to, so you can see the method field, right? But I guess you can't see the different methods that are given as an option. But it gives you all of the functions on the Gnosis protocol relayer. The one that would probably most typically be proposing is an order trade. Everybody can see this, right? There's like 8 fields.
Yeah.
So I'll just like talk through briefly how this works. And Nico, correct me. Nico's the expert. He can correct me if I'm wrong about anything here. But And again, this is the current Gnosis protocol relayer, and there was a bug in this, and there's been some adaptations made, and that's one of the reasons we need a new deployment. So token in is the token you want to send from the treasury. Token out is the one. Oh, actually, do I have that backwards? Token in is the one. Nico, maybe you should take over here. I'm gonna get lost.
Yeah, no worries. I can shortly go through.
Yeah.
So basically token in means which tokens do we actually want to send to Gnosis protocol relay. So let's say we want to trade DAI for DXD. Token in that case would be the DAI we would send to Gnosis protocol, and token out would be the address that we expect to get out of GP, in that case the DXD address. Then
can we edit those field names?
Actually,
like maybe the grayed out text inside the.
Yeah, it's a
It's
super good comment.
It's possible to make any updates through the UI, but what the UI is currently doing is actually pulling just the function names from the smart contracts. So what you're talking about is possible, and it would obviously make the UI nicer, but it's going to require some updates to Alchemy.
Yeah, but it's totally like, I agree, it would be perfect to actually be able to also cross-reference or explain some of the fields. Something like that would be pretty nice. But unfortunately, as of now, we are not able to update that.
Yeah, I think that could be like a requirement for the DX, like the upcoming DXvote product, that like the people who built the DXvote actually include Gnosis protocol relay UI, which we then can use and actually improve. Like, this is horrible.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, we could build really like a UI, right? You could select the tokens as you would have selected them on Swapper and stuff like that, and all of the calculation could happen in the front end.
Yeah, a lot of these relayer proposals are actually, they are quite tricky. Not only is it kind of just difficult to understand, but there's a lot of potential pitfalls, as I know from experience, screwing a couple of them up. So yeah, I mean, I think ideally we'd have a very custom UI for some of this relayer stuff to make it easier, but that will take some work. That's maybe a future version of the DAO. Sorry, Nico, go ahead.
Okay, cool. So token in, token out, we spoke about that. Then token in is actually what is the amount you want to send to the protocol. And then token out amount, and we've changed that on the newest version. It means currently expected token out amount. So you can define like a lower bound that you actually want to accept. There's some calculation happening on the relayer itself. It takes average prices once the proposal passed, but you can select like a lower bound that you never want to go lower than that amount. In most cases, we probably don't want to use that. So we would keep it extremely low just to make sure that the market prices will be accepted. And also then there's this price tolerance, which kind of adds like a percentage based on the calculated amount on that market average. And we can fully control that. It could be like 0%, it could be 10%. That depends on the use case, if we want to use it or not. Then the next min reserve parameter. We use a Uniswap style AMM to actually get the average price to pull it from. And we tell it what is the minimum reserve. So what is the expected amount of liquidity in the pool that we expect on the certain protocol. So that is a parameter we were speaking in the requirements, that there might be tokens that are not super liquid, or there might be a lot of trading going on, and we would be able to actually set also here like a lower bound of the expected liquidity in the pool just to make sure if there's some manipulation happening, or we expect some manipulation, whatever, we could actually prevent of updating the average price from the Oracle. That doesn't mean the whole trade would be executed. It just means the market price can only be taken once that minimal reserve is reached sometime in the future. That's what you control with this. It's like definitely at a advanced setting, you probably won't use it so much. Deadline is the latest amount we actually want to allow to execute the trade. And there's also a new parameter, which we cannot see here, but it's in the newest one. It's the start date. So we cannot only define until when the trade can happen, but what is the earliest starting point of the trade that could occur. And that was coming from a discussion we had about executing the buyback reserve. And what we could do with this start date is that we actually say, okay, we want to execute 10 trades, but not one big amount, but basically 10 batches over 10 days. And we could submit 10 trades with 10 different start dates, and they would all be executable from our own proposal that we can agree on. And the last parameter is the factory. That's basically where you pick which Uniswap style AMM you actually want to pick the prices from.
And those factory addresses will be whitelisted in the relayer contract, right? So there'll be a set list of options when the contract is deployed. So presumably like SushiSwap, Uniswap, Swapper.
Exactly.
It's interesting too with the, I don't know if folks have looked at the Uniswap v3 specs and code and white paper, but what we described here about taking Oracle prices from Uniswap, it requires a couple of calls to the relayer itself. In Uniswap v3, we'll be able to make a relayer that, like, when the proposal is executed from DXDAO, it can atomically, like in the same transaction, check the Oracle prices from Uniswap, which is really cool. All right, cool. You can see my other tabs, right? I'll talk about the Swapper liquidity relayer now. You guys can see now the DXDAO. Just let me know if you can.
Yep.
So, like, this is the same thing with the Gnosis protocol relayer, right? There's two steps. The first one is to send funds. So here we can see a proposal that's ready to be executed that is sending XDAI and WETH to the Swapper liquidity relayer on XDAI. So once this is executed, that'll put the funds onto the relayer. That's always the first step. The funds need to be there, or the actual deposit won't work. And then the second step is to have a multi-call proposal, which actually executes like in what's called on the function level, it's called the order liquidity provision. So this is actually setting up an order on the relayer to deposit tokens into Swapper. So similar to like the Gnosis protocol relayer, like you create the order, it then requires, Nico, the Gnosis protocol relayer does the Oracle checks too, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so like once the order is created, then separately somebody needs to call, and anybody can do it, it's a public function, needs to call the Oracle update function on the relayer a couple of times. Once that is ready, anybody can then call like execute order on the relayer. That's for deposits. So just kind of walking through, this one is about ready to execute. It won't work unless the funds are put in there first. So we need to do that execution first. But the first couple parameters here are token A, token B. This defines the pair that you want to deposit into. So in this case, it's WETH on XDAI and then XDAI itself. Now here, the order is actually important. The relayer expects to have them in alphabetical order. So you need to make sure that you check the strings and make sure that this is below this one in terms of like the string ordering. Then amount A and amount B, amount A corresponds to token A, amount B to token B. This is in like the way format, so like 18 decimals for your typical token, but it depends on the token itself, right? Different tokens have different numbers of decimals, so you have to be careful about that. But this is telling the relayer how much token to deposit of each. So this matches what we saw in the that previous funding proposal. Plus there was a little extra WETH, I think, on the relayer, so it's including that. Price tolerance, so the way this number works is in the contracts, this number gets divided by an integer that is equal to 1 million. And then that defines the percentage price slippage that would be like acceptable between like when the Oracle checks the price on the other exchange and when the deposit is actually made. So in this case, it's 100,000 at 10% slippage. Sorry, is there a question? No. Okay. So here we have min reserve A that corresponds to token A or WETH in this case. Min reserve B corresponds to XDAI and the factory. So factory in this case, I believe it's HoneySwap. I think that's maybe the only option right now. This is that or Swapper. Oh, actually, no, I lied. This is Swapper. So what this is doing is it's going to check the Swapper factory and the XDAI WETH pair on Swapper for the current prices. And so somebody calls that, and this defines like the spacing that is required between the calls. So you have to call the Oracle price on the pair on Swapper twice, and they have to be separated, I think, by about 2 minutes. And all of this needs to be done by the deadline, right? And then when that Oracle update is done, the relayer is making sure that the Swapper pair has a minimum of 35 WETH, and I think it's like 55,000 XDAI. So this is just to make sure that there's enough liquidity to get reliable prices. So generally, I think you want to be like looking at deeper pools across the exchanges and using that as the source of truth for the price. One thing that's a little bit tricky here is that it's always possible for the liquidity to change while the proposal is like finding consensus, right, and being voted on. So it's good to be a little careful there. In this case, since it's Swapper and XDXL already has some liquidity in Swapper, we have pretty high confidence that that liquidity will be there because it actually belongs to DXDAO. And then once you enter all this, you can actually see this when making the proposal too. You get the raw call data, you can go to Tenderly, and you can simulate the proposal. So one problem here that we have with simulations is because the funds are sent separately, the simulation will fail unless the funds are actually there. So sadly, to simulate some of this stuff, it actually takes a lot of work with Tenderly. It's possible. Nico has done this where you can actually change the state of the test blockchain, but it takes more work. Any questions on this? I'll show you. This is Block Scout. This is the DXSwap relayer, Swapper relayer. And here's the tokens it currently has. You can see the Swapper tokens for the WETH XDAI pool from previous deposit and the excess like WETH and XDAI that's left on there. When the order is actually made, you'll be able to see the order here under read contract. You can see that the order count is 8. It's 0 index, so the last one was 7. You can query, get order details, and yeah. So this is the last one. I think this is the test withdrawal that succeeded yesterday. But once this proposal here is actually executed, it will create number 8 on Block Scout here on this relayer contract. And then what has to be done is you go to write contract. Anybody can do this. You can call, you put in 8, you click write, you call the update oracle, you wait 2 minutes, you call it again, and then once those are in, you can actually execute the order here just by typing in 8 and writing it. So I've started a guide here. I'm working on a guide so that people can follow all the steps. And I think, yeah, like sadly, this is a little complicated. So I think it's maybe not going to be something that anybody can do easily. Like, but you know, I think some people will be able to get familiar with it and work on them.
Yeah.
Can I just ask regarding the tenderly testing? So if I want to input that call data, so should I like start making a proposal, then like click on make a proposal, and then just copy from MetaMask that data and then input it in tenderly? Is that how to test it?
Exactly. Yep. That's like 100% the way. In most of the proposal that actually works. On this relayer stuff, it's unfortunately a bit more complicated. And that's because like you are not really able to simulate it with one transaction because it's chained. Like it will, let's say there's one funding proposal that sends the tokens to the relayer. And on the same day, we are creating the proposal to actually create this order to provide liquidity or trade. And then you would run the tenderly simulation, which says, hey, try if the provisioning of that liquidity would work. And it would throw an error because the funds are not there yet. That is coming from another proposal and another execution. So that's like just one thing you always need to be aware of, that this could maybe cause an issue.
Is it possible to do that, or tenderly?
Yes.
Yes.
They have like a super amazing feature, and we can maybe in the upcoming dev calls also go into that if anybody's interested. They call it tenderly forks. And what you basically could do is you take a snapshot of the whatever blockchain you want, whatever network they are supporting, let's say mainnet in this case. And then they have tools to chain different transactions from that are able to change the state with multiple transactions that you can execute. And then you would say in the first transaction, hey, execute the funding proposal, which increases the balance of token X. And once that would happen, then only create the liquidity proposal. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Do we know anyone that's been using them so we could ask for feedback?
Using which one? Using what?
Relays.
Yeah, so like I said, I'm working on a guide. Nico and I have been using them, and Chris and Sky have been getting involved as well. So yeah, I'm planning to publish a guide so that anybody should be able to do it if they're willing to kind of like study the guide and learn the pitfalls and do it. Yeah. But yeah, like you mentioned earlier, like I think the ideal like would be to have a UI that kind of walks the user through and like doesn't let you screw up in like the different ways you could screw up right now, right? Like, yeah. So yeah, so the last thing I just wanted to talk about a little bit is this post by Nico about the new multi-call. So with these relayers, there needs to be like a new multi-call. And so Nico made this post here, and he has this cool proposal, which is we could use 3 different multi-calls with different execution times, basically different speeds. So like you maybe were wondering like, why are we even sending funds separately from the like liquidity deposit orders? I mean, the idea there is basically to keep all of the funding proposals in the funding scheme and to only let funds go through that. And that way, voter attention can be like directed there and can understand that like these are the most like critical ones in terms of like the potential like damage that could be done, right? Like the funding and voting power is the most sensitive. So obviously like the multi-call one is also can be pretty sensitive. It can move funds on these relayers and stuff, but we're actually trying to separate it a little bit. So like, then if we think about security, we can look a little more closely at like what are the multi-calls doing? How long does a vote need to take for the DAO to feel confident that it's gotten enough attention? Like certain things, like maybe updating product releases or the token registry should not necessarily take too long. Maybe a couple days is enough. Other things that deal with funds, etc., we maybe want to stick to the funding and voting power standards. But then if it's something, and then this last idea, the open multi-call, the idea here is to leave it completely flexible. You could basically do anything on Ethereum, but we're going to use an even longer voting period to make sure people have time to vet these proposals. Nico, I don't know if you wanted to add anything.
No, that's like basically the idea, right? Like to make us a bit more flexible. I mean, there are some technical parameters that we need to find consensus about, and Augusto made some proposal for changes there, which made totally sense. I don't know. I don't think we need to go over everything now, but there's just thread, and let's try to find consensus in the discussion there.
Yeah, it would be great if everybody could read this. I think maybe quickly we can just go through what we're whitelisting, and the other good thing would be is if there's something that's missing, definitely mention it, because it costs money and takes time to get these things installed, and so it's good to make sure we're not missing anything, right? So right now the quick multi-call is the registry, the ENS stuff, and the radical registry, which would be a new thing. We should talk more about that in another call. Proposed governance parameters, the safe multi-call, which is kind of like at the same level as the funding and voting power, would then have the bonding curve, the relayers, the swapper, fee setter, and receiver, and I think that's it, right? Are we missing anything? That would be like anything that needs to be on this whitelist. It would be great to kind of make sure we're thinking of. Something Nico and I had discussed a little bit would be the idea of using the XDev bridge and adding that to the whitelist. Unfortunately, there's like a technical thing. You need to be able to do approvals from the multi-call, and that's not supported from multi-calls. So we'd have to build another relayer, I think, to actually do that. So we can't add that yet. But yeah, if anybody has any other ideas, definitely think about it. Definitely check out this post and add your feedback.
Yeah, it's a really good post. It's kind of like cool to divide those up into the different segments, because I think it kind of gets to tailoring our processes to like our specific needs. So yeah, that was really, really kind of good post that did that.
Yeah, and the way I like to think about it is like one of the most critical aspects of security for DXDAO is making sure that voters understand what they're voting on, right? Because especially with holographic consensus, it's critical that the people can see what's going on, because it's kind of like can move quickly if people stake, right? So we're really depending on enough attention being there to stop anything that is malicious, right? So I think about that in terms of how it's being organized as well, right? Like we want to make sure the most critical things are clearly identified and also have ample time for people to understand them. And we want to be able to move fast on the less critical things where possible. And I think we want the UI to kind of separate things in a nice way. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. No. I still think with like even those three kind of like multi-calls, like there's really one thing missing, and we've just seen that in kind of the complexity, right? Like with the relayers, so that we actually have to create two proposals. The first one is for funding, and the other one is like for executing calls. So I really think there should be like a fourth piece of multi-call, or maybe it could be the open multi-call in the future as well, which would basically allow us to interact with other DeFi protocols and approve tokens and stuff. It's currently not supported, but I think we should really try to come up with a solution and work on it, that we would really be able to use a lot of the DeFi protocols from one multi-call without needing to create relayers and stuff. But yeah, it needs to be built, it needs to be audited. So I guess that's some weeks away.
Yeah, some weeks. Oh, yeah, we need to have the focus on it. Yeah, maybe that could be still a priority before Governance 2.0, but I would say definitely for Governance 2.0, some of these things should be worked out when we're implementing.
I had
new governance.
just a general question is, the multi-call is super powerful. It has a whitelist, but as we just went through, like, really, you probably need a customized UI for like each of the different whitelist and multi-call options in order to make it like user friendly, which then like kind of relates back to having an individual scheme for all the things that you want to accomplish, right? So the multi-call is powerful, but if you're whitelisting and you have to like customize to each one, I think that's still easier than building an individual scheme for each thing that you want to do. But it's like, it's kind of similar, right? Like you could have a list of, like you could have a different scheme for each of these things that are whitelisted in the multi-call, but that took a lot of work. So we use a multi-call, but now to like actually use it in a friendly way, you kind of need to build a customized UI for each one. So it's like, not sure what the best answer is, right?
Totally, yeah. I guess like what's coming close to that challenge is also like the Gnosis Safe with their multisig. They kind of like have this same, or like a similar issue that they have like this transaction, which would be just bytecode or forms, and they have these apps. I mean, that would be something we probably would like to have, right? Like anybody could stick in with like a custom UI that would make the inputs much easier.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, something to think about, like whether Gnosis Safe or other things could be leveraged, like in the future. Yeah, because I think, like you said, like to some extent, you're never gonna really avoid the need for custom UI for like specific use cases. I think the generic UI could be improved a little bit. Like we could add like the ability to upload a separate description file that matches the things on the whitelist, and it could be kind of like a low fidelity way to improve it. But like at the end of the day, to really get the best experience, you're going to need a custom UI. Yeah, it's just kind of the way it is.
One other idea would be, which I think Nico kind of just mentioned, is like if you had, like, because the multi-call on XDAI is super powerful, and like we're like able to do so much stuff with it because there's no whitelist. So if you could have a version of that on mainnet that we have like experimental access with, but it has a limit, so it can never like send more than $25,000 at any time. So like you could experiment with an open multi-call for any contract, but it has a restriction on the amount that it can actually interact with MDAO.
So I think something like say you wanted to do like what people were talking about yesterday, like a yield pursuit or like degen, whatever, DXdegen or something. You could do like a guild or something where there are more flexibility.
Yeah.
And like send the funds to the guild, right? And so you have a limited amount of funds.
That makes sense.
I was like shortly thinking about it, and I maybe just shared on this multi-call post as well. Like, let's say this open multi-call would be able to store its own funds, right? So we could agree on an amount that could be just transferred from the treasury to that multisig, and all of the funds that are sitting on this open multi-call could be approved and transferred. So it is like its own galaxy. It cannot really take effect of the overall DXDAO treasury, and we don't have any big security risks, but we still would have the flexibility to interact with other protocols and use tokens and stuff. That could be maybe like one pattern we could think.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's different ways to organize it. And mentioning guilds, I think guilds are also a way to get more flexibility and abilities here, right? Like delegating the ability to update Omen.eth to the Omen guild, right? And then that could potentially move faster or do different things. So yeah, different ways to approach it. All right, we're a little over, so thanks everybody for hanging on here. Anything else before we close? If not, everybody have a good